Thank you all for taking out your time to join us webinar session today on sustainability certification and new fish welfare standards. I'm Neha Chaturvedi from FIAPO, Federation of Indian Animal Protection Organizations, India's apex animal welfare organization with over 174 members and 200 supporter organizations nationally. Our speakers for today are from the organization Friend of the Sea, and they are Dr. Paulo and Mr. Amod Salgonkar. A little brief about the speakers. Dr. Paulo Bray is currently the Director of International Programs, Dolphin Safe Project, Earth Island Institute, and founder and director of World Sustainability Organization and Friend of the Sea Certification Program. He has been engaged for the last 30 years in protecting endangered species and in environmental conservation activities. The Dolphin Safe project has helped save millions of dolphins from being killed by tuna fisheries, deliberately targeting also dolphins. In 2008, Dr. Paulo created Friend of the Sea, currently the major international sustainability certification program for seafood, aquaculture, omega-3, whale and dolphin watching, and other products and services to act on potential impacts on the marine habitat. In 2016, he created Friend of the Earth, a major international certification program for products from sustainable agriculture and farming, such as rice, eggs, wine, oil, dairy products, quinoa, coffee, etc. He has also founded the World Sustainability Organization, which supports conservation projects and campaigns. Our second speaker for today, Mr. Amod, presently holds the position of International Advisory Board member of Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth, besides playing a role as an advisor at Good Food Institute India. In his personal capacity, he has developed vast network in fisheries and aquaculture arena in India and throughout the globe through engagements in trade aspects, sustainability, climate change impacts, alternative food, etc. He also writes in international seafood media on various fisheries and aquaculture topics. He achieved his master's degree in fisheries resource management from Central Institute of Fisheries Education. Our session today is going to focus on topics such as fisheries and aquaculture sustainability, new ethical fish welfare standards, world's first plant-based meat and seafood standard, and importance of ESG and fish welfare to the seafood business. A note to participate, all the participants, your mics and cameras have been disabled for the session. We will have a question answer session after the presentation. So please keep your questions coming in the chat box. Over to you now, Dr. Paulo and Amod.
Yeah, Paulo, your mic is mute.
Thank you for this invitation. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be able to introduce our initiatives about fish welfare. I want to point out how our organization, WSO, completely share the mission of FIAPO, the Federation of Animal Protection Organizations in India, which is the recognition and respect of animal rights. From the start, I've been involved in campaigns over the years when I initially worked on the Dolphin Safe Tuna project, which were related also to eradicate captivity in aquariums, dolphins captivity and other mammals. And in general, our activity, which has focused on certification, has often overlapped also with initiatives related to animal rights. And after all, sustainability and sustainability of the ecosystems and habitats has to do with animal rights. Because when you protect the habitat, you protect also the rights of the animals to live and thrive in that habitat. So this should not be forgotten. I will go more in detail in my presentation about our initiative in fish welfare, mainly in aquaculture, but I will also talk a little bit about fisheries and agriculture and farming. So I want to also appreciate Mr. Ahmad's efforts to create this liaison, this connection with FIAPO, which I hope with this webinar will start and improve over the months and the years, with hopefully also other initiatives. So I know that FIAPO has many members, as other organizations in India dealing with animal welfare. So we are totally open to work with you, to also hear your suggestions on how to further improve in our standards and all the work that we do and our conservation projects too. So Ahmad, thank you very much, and thank you, Neha, for introducing me.
Thanks a lot, Paolo. So as Neha has already pointed out and set the tone for the webinar, I will not make much of the time, as she already explained. And in brief about our projects, Dr. Paolo has just explained. Before moving out, just for my background, so I worked previously with various retail and cash and carry organizations, did my master's in fisheries resource management. Besides that, worked on few projects which deals with the remote sensing and GIS, particularly on the aspects of potential fishing zones. And later on then moved on sustainability, and these days learning more or less about the ESG. So now we'll go further for our webinar. So Paula, I would like to request you to please present the screen.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so hello everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Picked the wrong notes. Okay, sorry. Well, I'm the founder and director of WSO, the World Sustainability Organization, which has created, launched, and manages two major programs, Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth, which are both groups of standards for certification of sustainability of products and services, as well as conservation projects and campaigns. Back in the early 90s, I got involved in the Dolphin Safe Tuna project of the Earth Island Institute, of which I'm currently the international director. The Earth Island Institute is an NGO based in Berkeley, California, founded by David Brower, most influential environmentalist of the past century in the US. The Dolphin Safe program, by means of certification and the involvement of 95% of the world tuna industry, continuously audited by our monitors, managed to contribute to the reduction of dolphin mortality in the Eastern Tropical Pacific by 98%, from the initial 100,000 dolphins killed per year to the current 1,500. Dolphin populations in the area are recovering. The Dolphin Safe program has been the precursor of the sustainable seafood movement. I then realized that certification could be a very important tool to achieve tangible conservation results. I therefore launched in 2008 Friend of the Sea, which is currently the only certification standard for sustainable seafood completely independent from the seafood industry. All others have been founded by the industry itself, and their board is populated by the same companies they certify. We have instead decided to avoid any possible conflict of interest and have maintained our independence over the years. The project has grown over the years, and currently over 1,000 companies in more than 70 countries have Friend of the Sea certified products. Friend of the Sea has grown to become the major certification of this kind in terms of metric tons certified, as shown in the pie chart on the right. from a study by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, describing the market share of the various seafood certifications, and in red, the share of the Friend of the Sea. Just, we'll move. Okay, that's fine. Friend of the Sea is also the only certification program which can potentially, with the same consumer-friendly seal of approval, certify both seafood origins, wild caught and aquaculture. This makes life easier for companies and consumers, as they do not have to learn various logos and acronyms for different products' origins. Friend of the Sea certification requirements are different for products from fisheries and from aquaculture. As far as Friend of the Sea certified wild-caught fished products are concerned, they must originate from fisheries that do not target stock which are overexploited, according to the best and most updated scientific information from RFMOs or independent marine research institutes. The fishing method must be selective, so less than 8% discards, and catch no endangered species. The fishing gear must not impact the seabed in an unsustainable way. The fishery must be well managed and compliant with laws and regulations, including IUU, flag of convenience, mesh size, minimum size. Waste and energy must be managed and minimized. Social accountability compliance is requested for crews on board and workers in the processing lines. Fleets must also be dolphin safe and comply with FAD's requirements for tuna, use circle hooks for long lines, dory lines when applicable. Friend of the Sea aquaculture requirements aim to minimize impact on pre-existing natural habitat, in particular critical habitats like mangroves and wetlands. Company must have measures in place to reduce escapes, entanglement of predators. Water quality must be complying with a set of water parameters. Compliance with legislations on GMOs and growth hormones. Improve fuel efficiency and implement appropriate waste and water management, and also social accountability requirements as with fisheries. In more recent years, we have expanded the scope of the Friend of the Sea certification to reward with the Friend of the Sea logo other products and services which respect the marine environment. New standards have therefore been developed and companies and products certified. The objective is in the short term to turn a Friend of the Sea logo into a label that consumers immediately link to good practices and marine conservation. Certification is carried out by qualified independent auditors of third-party certification bodies, e.g. SGS, RINA, Control Union, and so on. The certification bodies themselves are monitored, audited, and supervised by the national accreditation bodies. Friend of the Sea is the only standard for products from sustainable fisheries to be recognized by the national accreditation bodies. In aquaculture, also Global GAP is recognized and supervised by the national accreditation bodies. This makes the certification more reliable for consumers, as it is really a third-party certification, the only third-party one for wild-caught sustainable seafood certifications. All independent benchmarks have scored Friend of the Sea requirements as best performing when compared to other standards. We have been undergoing also a GSSI benchmark for the past 3 years and expect confirmation of compliance by the end of the year. During COVID, Friend of the Sea has promoted the use of remote audit as we deem them more efficient and lower impact. We have launched our Sustainable Advanced Reality Audit, SARA, which is based on an online shared checklist and an on-site remote video recorded audit, which is then placed on blockchain. It can be used by the certification bodies accredited for the Friend of the Sea audits. Additionally, Friend of the Sea uses satellite systems like Global Fishing Watch to monitor behavior of all the approved Friend of the Sea's fishing and shipping vessels, because we certified also sustainable shipping, to verify compliance with some of the standards requirements, such as legal compliances, non-fishing in marine protected areas, transshipments, compliance with ILO's resolutions, the International Labour Organization. A mandatory use of CCTVs is about to be launched by Dolphin Safe, a Friend of the Sea, Video footage will have to be made accessible for each fishing trip to dolphin safe and friendly sea. Let's now talk about fish welfare and what research our organization has carried out and what measures it has implemented to improve fish welfare in aquaculture and in the future also in fisheries. Well, apparently from a recent study by Harrison and Hall, it is confirmed that there is a strong relation between our phylogenetic relatedness and our empathy for other group of species. In simple words, the more different from us in size, shape, expression, the less empathic we feel for certain groups or species of animals. For this reason, fish are very low in our empathy scale, considered almost at the same level as invertebrates, insects, and so on. In fact, some aquatic species are invertebrates, such as crabs, lobsters, sea urchins, jellyfish. To be selectively empathic to other species based on phylogenetic can be a bit tricky, and it is very subjective. It all depends on what animal you are, not based on science. In fact, science is providing with increasing evidence that not only fish, but also other aquatic species have very well-developed senses, social life, and intelligence. A study titled Fish Intelligence, Sentience and Ethics by Colum Brown sums up all available scientific evidence, and it explains how, for example, fish can see like or better than humans. They have a sense of smell which is up to 10,000 times better performing than humans. They can hear a wider range of frequencies. They even have additional inputs such as the lateral line, which gathers vibration information from all over the body and sends it to the brain via the inner ear to be processed. Some fish are electrogenic. They produce electricity. And electroreceptive. They detect and respond to electricity. They can use the Earth's magnetic field to navigate. Most of these senses are, of course, very helpful for them to avoid predators. All this information is described in much more detail in Fish Intelligence, Sentience, and Ethics by Colum Brown. Fish senses are, generally speaking, better developed than humans. Now that we learned that fish have same or even more and equal or even better senses than humans, let's see how they performed in experiments to verify their actual skills. Well, science has provided evidence that fish can learn and it can have long-term memory. For example, rainbow fish, which lives an average of 2 years, has proved to remember escapes routes in 1 year. They live in social groups where they teach skills to each other. Social traditions are, for example, thought to be responsible for the migration routes of several species of fish, including cod. Shifts in cod spawning grounds seem to be the result of systematic removal of older, knowledgeable individuals by commercial fishing. Fish cooperate with different species. There is a very interesting video on YouTube about the cooperation between the grouper and the moray eel going hunting together. Other classical examples are those of the cleaner wrasse and its clients. Fish can recognize, and by the way, we also collaborate with some fish. If you go to Thailand, you can do something similar with fish to your feet for massage. So fish can recognize humans as any goldfish owner knows. They recognize kins and self-recognize using both visual and chemical information. They build nests, sometimes, as in the case of tilefish, up to 1 meter high. They also use tools. In fact, a number of species of wrasse use rocks to crush sea urchins or shells so as to access the meat inside. Last but not least, fish respond to pain. Fish have all the hardware associated with pain perception. nociception, and that the application of analgesics reduces the symptoms. In fact, that's proved by several studies. So, and if you were not convinced yet, I guess this is one of the most effective pictures, at least for me, it has been, to prove the complexity of fish's social life and how they have actually what we would call artistry. This is a nest built by a 5-centimeter male pufferfish to attract the female. So I believe this is really impressive, and I suggest, if some of you have not yet seen it, there is a very nice video of a BBC documentary showing how this is built in a couple of weeks with a lot of patience and attention by the pufferfish, and it's presented by David Attenborough. And this is how a tuskfish uses a seabed rock to open up a shellfish. Evidence of using tools. So why should we be concerned about fish welfare and humane treatment of animals? Because fish and aquatic species in general, as you can see from this slide, are the most exploited worldwide. For example, an estimated 3 trillion of fish are either farmed or caught every year. This is 1,000 times more individuals than mammals, cows, pigs, etc. Some of them are caught in the wild, so our impact on their welfare implies a certain level of complexity, which is still quite unknown. Before we dive into farmed fish welfare, let's have a look at how different fishing gears could perform in terms of fish welfare during the few moments of the life, or the few last moments of the life of fish. As we can see, if we consider the various phases of fishing activity, from bait fishing through chase, or I'll try to move my, if it impacts the visibility of your screen. So as we can see, if we consider the various phases of fishing activities, from bait fishing through chase, time before death, habitat impact, and so on, it would seem that trolling, gill nets, and long lines are among the worst performing fishing gears, while pots, traps, pole and line, and purse seine could be among the best performing. So the sea is now involved in a project specifically to assess the impact of fishing on fish welfare. It will be possibly the major one ever carried out. It will be again in collaboration with Fairfish and other institutes and supported by open philanthropy. While we wait for the outcome of the study, which will likely last 3 years, here are some possible improvements in fishing to improve the fish welfare. Among them, reducing the time fish are held in gear and on the deck, reducing injury and stress, humane slaughtering techniques such as percussive or electrical. But let's talk about fish welfare in aquaculture. The subject is relevant also because plenty of evidence and studies have concluded how improvement in fish welfare can lead to important economic returns in aquaculture. This occurs, for example, by reducing mortality, improving water quality, and fish density. On the other hand, when farmers do not appropriately consider fish welfare, they can experience negative economic consequences. Back in 2018, Friend of the Sea, aware of the importance of fish welfare also in aquaculture, decided to embark together with the Swiss and international organization Fairfish and the Fish Eto Group into one of the major studies and researches on the subject. This study lasted 3 years and was supported by open philanthropy. 51 farms belonging to 33 Friend of the Sea certified companies in 12 countries have been visited. The survey covered 24 fish species. 2 visits were carried out at 6 months interval. A gap analysis was carried out about fish welfare standards and implementation in the various farms. Guidance was provided to companies to improve their practices, and several actually implemented the recommendations. These were the most frequent recommendations based on the gap analysis. Major gap was recurring in most farms and related to humane slaughtering, environmental enrichment, crowding, and densities, as you can see from the data. The study led to a revision of the Friend of the Sea standards, which were then finally approved by our technical committee. And we launched the press release communicating about the new standards, as you can see, in 2020. And the new standards, as anticipated, relate to 24 farmed fish species, which you can see listed here, from salmon to trout, to sea bream and sea bass, to mullet and sturgeon and turbo. And among these, from my knowledge, the one that is more related to India, these are more like in temperate areas, but the one more related to India is the cobia, which I will go a bit more in detail in terms of the requirements which have been introduced. To provide you with more complete information, here are the different chapters of the requirements that were introduced for the aquaculture Friend of the Sea certification checklist. And you can see there have been requirements related to the hatchery phase and to the on-growing phase. They cover aspects such as the captive environment, water, animal health and animal welfare, feeding, handling, vaccination, grading, transportation, starvation, crowding, culling, welfare assessment, stocking and mortality. And there's just a variation in the chapters for hatchery and on-growing, because in hatchery there's a focus on the welfare of the brood stocks and the eggs, and differently from the on-growing one. And of course, within each requirement, there are different sub-requirements because of the differences between hatcheries and on-growing. And as far as cobia, there's a nice, interesting study about best protocols in cobia farming and in hatchery. As you can see here, you can go more in depth, and that's specific to India. But hopefully our new requirements for fish welfare will be a useful add-on for those interested farmers. And so, as you can see, a bit more in detail, but I won't go through all of them. The requirements relate, and you can see here some examples of the sub-requirements to water. So there's requirements specific for cobia about the temperature, crowding. There's a requirement specifically for cobia about the densities and so on. And also there are a number of requirements related to brood stock and eggs. And then, as anticipated, also requirements related to the captive environment and crowding. If you have technical questions, of course, we can satisfy all of them separately. You can contact us. All the checklists are now public on the website. There's a manual on how to interpret them, and our scientific department will be very happy to support you on this. Unfortunately, I am an economist. I'm not a scientist, even though over the years I've learned quite a lot on the subject. So I'm not the proper person to answer specifically today, but maybe Amod can answer some of this. And talking about economics, it's interesting to highlight how some studies have tried to estimate the willingness to pay of consumers, and basically I believe that the most reliable studies have concluded that there's a willingness to pay which ranges from 5% to 15%, depending on the country where this question is posed. Of course, this is not always then what happens at the marketplace, at the point of sale, because one thing is what people answer on a questionnaire, and one thing is what they actually do in real life. But yes, there's a difference between the different countries. Apparently in the US, the willingness to pay is a bit less, talking about willingness to pay for animal welfare seafood. And however, this is constantly growing, and in particular in Europe, there's a growing interest about the subject, and also this study confirms that the interest is top on the list for consumers. And there's more and more information available about fish welfare. These are a couple of the books which I also read, which I think are covering the subject in the most comprehensive way. And there are studies also for India, as you can see, this one from Fish Welfare Initiative, which are quite similar to our studies, and covered a number of farms in different areas, as you can see on the map, and for different species. You can see catfish, carp, mostly, and apparently the most commonly reported production issues were related to the water quality, diseases and infection, lack of veterinary care, parasites, feed management, stocking densities, and predator control. One last slide to mention, as I anticipated in my introduction, that as WHO also certifies agriculture products with the Friend of the Earth seal of approval. Well, we have developed, of course, requirements and standards for different types of products, from poultry to other types of farming, and all of them include also animal welfare requirements and standards. But we are always open also to interact with organizations like yours. So we are completely open, and we would like also you to be part of our newly established technical committee for Friend of the Earth, because we believe that somebody from your arena, let's say, from the fish welfare and from the welfare arena, should be included in the technical committee, which is the independent body which sets the standards, modifies the standards, proposes changes to the standards, and votes them. So if you are interested in this, feel free to contact us. And with this, I pass the microphone over to Amod, which I think I'm going to keep on using the same presentation, right?
Yes, Paolo, right. So thanks a lot, Paolo, for sharing each and everything. And can you just put up the next slide? So as everyone has come to know regarding the fish welfare and the different aspects associated with the fish sustainability and aquaculture sustainability, maybe many of you may have the question in mind, okay, what is ESG and how are the relation, or what is the scope over here, because I do not know how many people are recently talking about it or not. But yes, ESG, it is termed as the environment, social, governance. Put together, these three circles form the very good establishment or framework, I can say, wherein environment, it's comprised of major three changes or major three factor. One is pollution and waste, another one is climate change, and third one in the natural resource scarcity. Wherein social, like human capital management, then human rights, product services. So basically all those different factors which are associated with the social criteria are coming under this clause. And of course the governance. So how usually the body can be governed so that it can run in a proper manner also. So in governance, the role of board of directors or the company leadership is what most important. Now, what is the relation over here? Like, though the ESG is about the ability to create and sustain the long-term value in a rapidly changing world and managing the risk and opportunities associated with the changes, how it can fit applicable for the business. So in my opinion, these three, whenever they are coming together, many of the times, impacting in various ways over the business. Just to give one example, for example, if there is any seafood factory which is associated or based near the coastal area, and if there are any indications of the climate change, for example, the flooding or the water level increase, then particularly if such scenarios come, then what shall be the situation? Whether there will be any impact on the factory, where there will be any impact on the personnel, and so on. So there are many various factors which are associated with it. Nowadays, many of the people, before going for the investment, like you may be hearing these days that this investor has invested a lot million of dollars, US $1 billion into this seafood firm or so. So why they are investing? So what exactly they are doing in this? So when you go into the details of the ESG, then you will come to know that there are different bodies, there are different organizations who work precisely for this factor, and they give the opinion to the investor whether to invest in the particular firm or not based on their ratings. Can you please put up the next slide, Paolo? Yeah, so this is what the relation of a friend of the sea. So the meaning, or why I was emphasizing little bit on the ESG, something related new term in relation to the fisheries and aquaculture. So there are n number of firms. There are some good firms which are in particular doing the work or the role for the ESG, for carrying out a detailed research, and usually it is termed as the second party opinion. So Sustainalytics, it is one of the firm which is known for carrying out the ESG related factors. And you know what, it has the case happen in 2018 when they have started doing a number of things related to the fisheries. And among those, like whenever any company is going for the large scale expansion, they definitely have to take the loans. So whenever the banks are also giving loans, whether they are taking into consideration the ESG factors or not, is also playing a role. In earlier days, it was not, but right now the situation is changing and it is getting credible. So for such expansions, if you go, you may find that the role of friend of the sea is becoming more and more useful. I will just explain in another slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in among those reports wherein they have made the small tables like overview of reference fishery sustainability certifications, friend of the sea was the major one who has been mentioned. And as rightly pointed out over there, always friend of the sea has given a very positive impact. And the most important thing which I always like while working for friend of the sea is there are a number of standards. Many of them are doing more or less a good work, But most precise and differentiating factor is none of the companies have the standards getting validated by the national accreditation bodies. Perhaps Friend of the Sea is the only organization and an international ecolabel whose standards for the wild caught are validated by Accreditia or by other national accreditation bodies. So for the new people who may not aware about the accreditation criteria, so in the globe, overall, there is a IAF, which is termed as an International Accreditation Firm. Under that, there are different accreditation bodies at a country level. So those are in between related. So all the third party assessors, those who are assessing our standards, should be verified from the national accreditation bodies, and this is making us something separate. Now this is what we are claiming, but this is validated by this kind of, the ESG firms. This gives the more credibility and the beliefness to more of the customers when they would like to go with the Friend of the Sea certification. Next slide, please. So here is the case in India. So why I have taken the example of Licious over here, though the concept of ESG is not much familiar here in India, and precisely if I have to talk about the companies, those are which is in the space of non-veg business, or I can say the meat and seafood business. Many few are aware of it, but I really appreciate the efforts of this company, Licious India, because this is only one company in India who is promoting their fisheries as well as meat products in most possible sustainable way, and they have not kept themselves on that level. More or less, they have announced the ESG commitments that they will be the ESG compliant in next 12 months. Now the announcement has happened in the month of May of this year. So possibly say by next year, by 2020, if everything goes well, they might be ESG compliant. And if they achieve this kind of status, I'm very much sure that it will open the new opportunities, new doors, even for the expansion to the overseas market. So let's see how those changes will take place. However, I thought to mention this example over here in relation to the ESG and non-veg business. Next slide, please. So yeah, like Neha was mentioning regarding the alternative seafood or the plant-based seafood or the vegan seafood. So as I'm associated with the Good Food Institute as well, which is known for spreading the mission for the alternative food, I will mention over here regarding the alternative seafood. There are basically three forms. One is the plant-based seafood, another is the cell-based seafood, and the last one is the fermentation derived seafood. So for the plant-based seafood, majority of the things comprised of a combination of different ingredients, and there are various sets and processes from which finally the plant-based seafood is getting made. Now the taste is more or less similar to the traditional foods, though this is a new science, it is developing. I may not say that it has reached to the 100% level also, but yes, the efforts are putting over there. As per my opinion, or if you ask me in particular, then I'm much more interested into the cell-based seafood. Reason being, cell, it is derived from the organ of the live animal, so that on that particular part of the animal, further that proliferation or isolation or multiplication of stem cells are happening. Number of processes, steps involved in order to make the compact item of the seafood, which is getting generated from that smallest cell which is there inside the body of the animal. And as far as the fermentation, which is the process generally known, it is getting utilized for making those seafood. Now the main thing to mention over here is in the plant-based seafood, if I have to say, in last previous couple of years from 2013 to 2020, there are more than 250 US million dollars has been invested. Yes, 250 million US dollars has been invested in particular to the alternative seafood. And if you see, the majority of it, it is going for cell-based seafood and rest for the other two categories. The sale or the graph which are viewing over here is particularly for the retail seafood market, which has been captured from the US. Next slide, please. Now, in collaboration with Good Food Institute India, like they are taking every year the India Protein Summit, which they have started in the last year. So in collaboration with the Good Food Institute Global, last year at GFI India Protein Summit, we have launched the standard for the plant-based seafood. Now I am happy to let each and everyone over here is that the standard of vegan seafood, when we have developed, we keep our eye very straight, and we have developed all our standard based on the SAFA guidelines, that is Sustainability Assessment of Food and Agricultural Systems. And in similar way, these are the different requirements how to obtain that certification. So as the industry is evolving from there or developing from there, so we would like to be in that space right from the start, so that we may also come regarding many things, that how it has to make applicable, as throughout the world there are no any regulatory standards as such developed particularly for the alternative food sector. In fact, I am happy to let you know that this year FSSI India has also released the standard for the release the information regarding setting up some guidelines for the vegan food, which is a motivating factor, I can say. Next slide, please. Now, as Paolo has already been shared before, so I will not take much of the time, but yes, this study has explained everything to each and everyone. Among the entire seafood, the conventional comprise of 85.8%, followed by certified. So when I'm saying certified, each and all standards, those who are in space, which comprise of 42%. Are there, and among that 14.2%, then FOS is contributing more or less 6.2%, followed by MSC 5.7%, and rest of the standards. So this also clearly shows that how the FOS is the leader, particularly in this space throughout the globe. Next slide, please. Now, various factors has already been explained, and as majority of the guidelines, or I can say majority of the requirements which we have already been set up through the FAO requirements, definitely bring some positive impact on the environment, and of course improving the different working conditions of crews and the other thing. The most notable thing which I would like to mention it over here, it's regarding the Tata Life project, which is related to the turtles, wherein we have developed the TED, the turtle excluder devices, and it has been widely accepted for particular set of countries. Even we have developed the circle hooks, which have then given the result in a way like it has reduced the mortality of the turtles while capturing or while doing the different fishing activities. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So this is about the conservation work. Perhaps I can say that Friend of the Sea might be one of the organization only in this particular arena who are doing number of things at a time, wherein we are promoting the sustainability, trying to do the or reduce the environment impact. Besides that, there are different number of projects which we are carrying out under the conservation activity. Notable among one is the genetic identification of the fish products. So on pilot, we have run this in Italy, wherein you may able to know the exact which seafood it is. Now you might get confused what exactly I'm talking about. So there are many seafood frauds which are happening. For example, you might be eating certain fish, but actually the fish which is getting used might be different. Then how you are coming to know that? So one of the technique is the genetic identification. So whether that is applicable to do when you are doing the normal fish production or the other things, yes, then it is possible. So how it has developed, each and every information is available on our website. I suggest you to please go through that. Then one of the most important project which we did, wherein Friend of the Sea leads the companies like Just Eat and Deliveroo to take shark fin soup off from the menu. So that shark fin was getting used in the soup in majority of their restaurants. However, we have put the campaign, we have run it in a very decent way, and final result was they have taken off the product from the menu. Next slide, please. So the most important thing is whether the products are getting accepted by many of the retailers or the cash and carry players or the e-com players or not. So this is what the example is. If you travel around the globe, you may find that there are a number of supermarkets or the major retail chains like Lidl, Konad, Spar, Esselunga, City Super, Manor Foods, Railway, Auchan, Walmart, Metro Cash and Carry, Carrefour. So no matter where you go throughout the globe, you may find a number of product over here. One of the product which is viewing over here, Safe Sea, is like one of the cream which has been developed, is certified by Friend of the Sea, and it is reducing too much of impacts when the chemical is getting released after applying on your body and when you're going for the swimming. Please have a look particularly on YouTube regarding this safety webinar. You may get a lot many new things, I'm sure about it. Next slide, please. So this is nothing but to the companies, those who would like to come on board Friend of the Sea, what all benefits they are going to get. So besides certifying as a third party most trusted eco label, we are giving other benefits as well. So in addition to the Friend of the Sea, if you would like to go for other certifications like Dolphin Safe or the Whale Safe, then we have availability of them. The any company who is coming on board Friend of the Sea do not have to pay any extra money to engage into the conservation projects. They are automatically become a part of the conservation. Then for those companies, like there are many developing countries wherein they were not able to afford the different kind of costs. So what we have come across, or what we have come up with, the term sustainability index. So this is in a very simplified manner wherein we are asking companies to fill the form and some questions online or our website, wherein we are then getting the information, we are validating, and then we are transferring back all the analysis what we did, and this everything we are doing free of cost, so that sustainability score also they may able to use. This is just to understand how you have to go closer to the sustainability, and afterwards if they feel yes, everything is right and it is going to get the benefit, then they can go for the full-fledged sustainability certification. So at least for majority of the companies, those who would like to understand how is the sustainability term, they can use this concept as a sustainability index. Then as far as there are many small companies, those who face the problem that how the visibility can be created. So we are not taking even a single rupee for doing the media visibility. We are doing the international press release. Besides that, we conduct a separate video interview as well as the webinar case study, which is then put forward in front of all the subscribers, those who would like to be a part of that study and so on. Then what might be the interesting is the restaurant promotion. So there are n number of restaurants precisely in Italy who are following the sustainability concepts, wherein they are supporting our projects. They are taking only those products, those who are Friend of the Sea certified. Then in addition to this, we are also giving one-to-one meeting, then consultancies. And recently last year, we are in the middle of this to test how exactly it will work. But we have also created one platform on our website, which will tell you about which are the different deals that are available right now with us. For example, if there is a company in the USA and they would like to have some Friend of the Sea sustainably certified products, then they will come to us through some form saying that we would like to have this much of products. We are looking for this. This is the price. So if you have anyone, please connect to us. So we did this kind of things precisely because I was the leading, and we did some two cases, and the things are ongoing. So that is one of the good things. And these days, one important thing is to be updated always with the recent knowledge. So we are also conducting some technical courses which are there, which we are organizing every year, and all these certified companies have access to those technical courses free of cost. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah, Paolo, you can scroll down all the things. So I don't think so that there is something different. I have to speak it again over here because majority of the things have already been covered in the entire presentations. But yes, I'm always believe that not because I'm the part of the friend of the sea, but I'm in this segment, particularly in the fisheries, for last more than 10 years, from different angles, I can say, from trade, from sustainability, from climate change impact, and many of the things. It is really not easy to handle number of things or a number of projects under one roof. So I really feel crazy some of the time about Dr. Paulo, that how he can managing all many of these projects under one roof. But yes, that's why I propose friend of the sea to be most trusted and most sustainable. And yes, here in India, if anyone would like to collaborate for any of the related aspects, we are quite flexible and open to listen each and everything, and all of you are welcome. Thanks a lot. So I'm handing over to Neha.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the session. It was quite informative. And we do have a few questions now. I start by this first one. It asks, what is the most sustainable or the least harmful fishing method? Would it be?
Well,
Yeah, you would like to answer, Paolo?
yes.
Yeah, please.
Well, first of all, I would suggest when approaching this issue to avoid generalization, consider that one would have to look into the actual practices that each single company is carrying out, and that's why certification is very important, because it assesses, it audits, it inspects each company one by one and over time to confirm compliance to sustainability requirements. I always a bit skeptical about seafood guides, so-called seafood guides, seafood sustainability guides, which sometimes are provided by aquariums or other institutions, which try and generalize on the subject and say, let's say, I don't know, Pangasius is bad, cod is bad, and salmon, if fished here is or farmed here, is good, and so on. One has to really look company by company, because things are changing radically in these past months and years. And you might find farmers of Pangasius in Vietnam which are putting in place good practices, sustainable practices. And you might find bottom trawlers in, I don't know, Northern Australia, which have very, very strict rules on fishing shrimps. And even though bottom trawling normally is considered like the devil of the fishing methods, you can find situations like the one I was mentioning in Australia, where the practice is very much regulated. They are allowed to fish only a few months per year with very, very strict rules also on handling any endangered species which might be by code, and the stock is healthy, etc. And the level of bycatch is very low. some of these trawlers now use TEDs to reduce, to filter out turtles and release them alive and to filter bigger fish. So really you have to look one by one. But if you are really interested in doing like a hit parade, I would say that if you are looking for some seafood which has normally a lower impact, that's shellfish like mussels, oysters, etc., which normally are even beneficial in that they filter the water. They don't need the feed. Normally, there's no input of antibiotics or other chemicals. And they might even create like an ecosystem where fish can spawn, etc., because they create like a new ecosystem which is useful also for this. And in fact, you can find a lot of fishermen around these platforms where they grow mussels, for example. And then you should consider that normally small pelagic fish, anchovies, sardines, they are more resilient because they have a shorter life cycle, and they're more resilient also to high pressure fishing. And even though there have been some instances where these stocks have been overexploited, like in Peru in the past and in northern Spain, and probably also in some areas around India, it is possible by means of a proper management and introduction of precautionary limits and so on, in a matter of a few years to recover the stock. And that's more or less where the whole worldwide industry is going. Fish which have longer life cycle, and sharks, sometimes we eat sharks, we're not even aware that it's from the shark family. They are less resilient to high fishing pressure. And if the fish is living, is a benthic fish living in the depths near the seabed, it's likely that the fishing activity could have a more detrimental impact on the seabed and the marine ecosystem. So even though you should always look more specifically to each fishing actor, let's say each fishing company, and that's why certification helps you, because you cannot do that per each seafood you're going to buy at the supermarket yourself. You need somebody to do it in the most independent and professional way. That's why certification is useful.
Okay, there's another question which says, what factors determine sustainable fishing?
Ahmad, would you like to answer, or I can answer as you prefer?
Yeah, you can answer. That might be better, no problem. You can.
Well, as I have shown in one of my slides, the requirements that we use have been specified there. In general, there isn't like an internationally agreed definition of sustainable fishing, even though the FAO, for example, has produced some guidelines with minimum requirements. But we go much farther than the FAO guidelines. Our requirements are much, much stricter. And they include the provision that the product, the seafood, should not come from fisheries which target stocks which are overexploited. Stock is the unit of measure for the health of aquatic resource, and it's by stock we mean the biologically independent population of one fishing species, so one that is not reproducing with others, with other stocks. So the stock should not be overexploited according to the best science. The fishing method must be selective, so because every fishing method can have bycatch, unwanted catches. And so one would like to avoid this, to limit this, in particular if there is bycatch of endangered species, which is, according to our requirements, prohibited. The fishing method cannot impact the seabed in an unsustainable way. There must be a management of the fishery in place, which includes precautionary limits, data collection, stock assessments, and so on. And we also look at a proper management of the waste, which could be produced by the fishing activity. You might have heard of ghost fishing. That's how the fishing gears keep on fishing in the environment, in the marine environment, even after they are lost accidentally or thrown off board because unwanted or broken, etc. So we have special procedures for this, and we request the company to be involved in ghost fishing initiatives. And then we have requirements, some recommendations about fuel efficiency. We request balance, an energy balance, and self-engagement on the side of the ship owner to improve its fuel efficiency over the years. Finally, but not least important, we have social accountability requirements to prevent our seal of approval to go on products which originate from fisheries or processing companies which do not take good care of their workers and crews. So I think these requirements very often overlap with other certifications. And of course, for aquaculture, I've shown also some of these requirements: preventing pollution, fish welfare now, social accountability, and so on. These normally overlap somehow with other certifications out there. And so I would say that normally these are the areas that one would have to look into to consider the fish as sustainable and the seafood sustainable.
Okay, here's another one. Have you done any research in culture fish welfare such as IMC? If yes, please explain what are the parameters taken for IMC fish welfare.
Yeah, so what I can say, I will combine this question along with one question which came from the Haven. Thanks a lot, Haven, for having here. Nice to listen the question from you. And as far as the specific fish culture on the IMC or the research, if someone is asking, then specifically we have not been done. Like Dr. Paolo also said in earlier of its slides. We have included social accountability measures and fish welfare criteria since the start of our standards. But that time it was not very much specific or different fish welfare standards, which we have recently initiated in the year 2018 in collaboration with the Fish Ethobase. And those results are getting produced now, wherein the first set is applicable for those 24 number of fishes. Now back here in India, or if I have to speak precisely for India, yes, the even what the study FWI has done, Fish Welfare Initiative, for the fishes, which focusing more on the IMCs or the Indian major carps. The major problem what I feel Heaven is, as I came from the industry, if you see majority of the export which is happening is more or less based on the fishes which are coming from the marine side. So that does not mean that IMC fishes are not getting consumed here in India. It is getting consumed, but in major way in the domestic part of India itself. Like if you go as per the production wise, then these IMCs are contributing very high in terms of inland fish production of the world, even if we see. But whether they have the export market right now, I'm talking about IMC, then it is not. Now the market has started picking well for the species like Pangasius as well as the tilapia, or I can say in specific gift tilapia. So when there is the origin for the gift tilapia, the good orders exporters are getting precisely from the EU or US market, where when it is a wild caught tilapia, majority of the stocks are going particularly for the Middle East market. But I have seen very less examples for the IMCs which is getting exported. Now, what is the relation of them with the standards? In my opinion, more or less, here the companies are going only to the certification or sustainable certification standards when there is a demand from the buyer, because certification is always a cost. I'm not denying to that part, but the most important thing is whatever we are consuming is sustainable or not, that the one has to decide. And what if in case if certain sustainably certified fishes are going to make available on economic basis, then why not to go about it? We have explained all this situation with different webinars or different conferences that we did here with the different authorities from time to time. But and that's why that was one of the reason why we have even launched that fish sustainability index. So if one is approaching, we are there to support. We would like to develop this support. Even if you remember our discussions last year, I was keen to introduce this kind of fish welfare standards here in India. And you may also agree that now we have almost more than 30 plus years of experience precisely in this sustainability space. Addition to that, these fish welfare standards. So we are looking forward for more support from the companies like you, and we'll be happy to develop this movement together along with you and in collaboration with FIAPO as well.
Definitely. Okay. The question, does Friend of the Sea carry out field inspection, or is it based on information provided by the producers?
Yes, of course, we carry out field inspections. Actually, being a third-party certifications, the audits are carried out by independent certification bodies like you might have heard of SGS, DNV, Control Union, and so on, which are the same which normally carry out ISO audits or Global Gap, etc. And they themselves are verified on a yearly basis by the national accreditation bodies in different countries. So it's really a third-party certification. The audits are carried out on site, and they imply the presence of the auditor for a few days, sometimes, depending on the size of the company or the fishery and so on. And now with the video making of the whole audit, you can also see that, you know, potentially a third party, upon request and approval from the audited company, could see the whole audit as it's carried out. I think this is a great advancement compared to other traditional audits. So we do carry out, in some instances, we are planning after COVID to keep on carrying out some audits with our virtual on-site audit system, maybe the surveillances. And this makes sense. We need to use new technologies, but still maintain the audit strict.
Right. Okay. There's one question that says, how can these standards be applied to small-scale farmers, especially in India, who are independent and do not supply to any companies, but sell them directly to consumers?
Our price list, maybe Amoden would like to add something if I forget something, but our price list is such that it depends on the cost of the audit, and the royalties, to use the logo, depend on the size of the company. That's in line with the FAO suggestions about this certification, to make it accessible to all different farmer scale. And in some cases in the past, we even invested ourselves on auditing some small-scale fishing cooperatives because we felt that they were deserving to be highlighted to the international market. So it is accessible, and it's known to be much more accessible than other programs.
Yeah, just to add up on the things, what I would like to let you know, Sneha, is whether any producer, irrespective of whether he is supplying to any company or not, does not make any difference, because the standards or whatever the requirements are going to be the same. It is not going to change for the big companies or for the small scale farmers. It is going to be same. The main question which arises is whether small scale farmers may afford the fee or not. Trust me, or you can have your analysis. I can say this 100% to you. Among the space, whatever all international eco labels are there, we are the most economic one in terms of pricing. That I'm very much sure about. And besides that, like, we also know that India is a very big country. There are many number in millions are lies, particularly for the small scale farmers. Money is not the main concern for us. We would like to promote the sustainability, but it is the only mean through which we gain the thing. So it should not be free. We are always open and flexible to go ahead to make it applicable for majority of the producer, and particularly small scale producer, like how our government of India is also would like to promote the doubling of farmers. So with considering that vision as well, we would like to contribute from our own way. We are very much open to listen to your ideas or your themes, what you think about it, and please approach. Our email IDs are there. I based in Mumbai itself, so we can do number of things. At least I am trying to do whatever I can in support with Dr. Paolo from Italy and with many of the people and the companies like FIAPO and others. We are keeping our movement on. You can also please be part of us.
Okay. Here's another one. How can media be effective in the awareness of saving lives of fishes?
Sorry, come again.
How can media be effective? The media can be effective in saving lives of fishes, in
So,
creating awareness.
of course, like it is very simple. I don't think so. This is a very critical question. Like many of the people are watching the different channels each and every day, and nowadays it is much accessible, particularly on the mobiles. So every media is having number of viewers to their channels. So it is a very simple math. Suppose if one media has number of viewers, and even if your information is there, then automatically those viewers, those who are watching that particular channel, will get that information. Now the viewers are really smart, and whatever is applicable to them and whatever they are understanding, they are making it applicable immediately. But majority of the times it may also happen that the channels may have interest in rest of the other things. But I think this might be a good time, or the time has come where we have to promote all such kind of activities. Everyone, those who are available here, I am very much sure would have gone through the report of IPCC, which is clearly indicating how important the climate change is and how it is impacting. So you can understand, if there is some drastic impact on the humans, what shall be the situation of animals in the sea. So through different conservation projects and so on, whatever the work actual organizations are doing, media plays the most important role, because within the minutes or within the seconds, the information may reach to the millions and billions. And we have the such kind of examples wherein what we did, it has reached even to the thousand number of millions. It has happened. So we evident of those situations. Paolo, in case if you would like to add anything.
I think you already made the point, and yes, of course, it's very important, and we have got medias in different countries to speak about fish welfare, and I think this is very much in line also with FIAPO's objective to make people aware about all this. And of course, most people are not aware of the fact that fish are sentient and so on. So that's one additional reason to insist on this, because media will want to pass this message because it's something relatively new and unknown and curious. So I think it's very interesting for their audience. So let's do our best to spread the word.
Okay, we'll take a last question for the session. It would be, what are the issues surrounding sustainable fishing? Amod, you're on mute.
I think we already answered this.
Yes, I think
About
this has
sustainable
already
fishing.
been-
I saw one interesting question, which was about the disadvantages of fish farming. And then one about the use, if we have standards for carp farms. If you don't mind, Neha, I'm sorry, I'm taking a little bit over this, but I just wanted to answer as far as carp. Yes, we have checklists and standards which can apply to any farming method, and then some requirements maybe do not apply to the specific one, but we can audit Indian major carp farms. And then what are the disadvantages of fish farming? Well, let's say, first of all, that if you are looking at the different productions of animal proteins, let's say, from farming, then fish farming normally is considered to be better performing in terms of its impact on the environment, because per kilo of production or per unit of production, it uses less feed. Normally, that's true also in terms of per kilo of protein, it uses less feed because it has less fat normally than production of animal farmed mammals, let's say, on land. And this per kilo input is decreasing over the years dramatically as fish feeding practices improve, as the production of fish feed is improved with less waste and with less use of fish meal and fish oil in the total of the pellet of the fish feed. And also one should consider that the forage fisheries which produce fish meal and fish oil are more and more sustainable, have improved over the years, in particular the anchoveta fishery in Peru, which is the biggest supplier of fish meal in the world. And I won't go much in detail on this, but if you're interested, we can provide information. On top of that, with the future implementation of vertical fish farming and aquaponics facilities, this will reduce dramatically the impact of fish farming because of the need of less antibiotics and the use of less land. And also in terms of escapes, these have been reduced with the introduction of better cages, better technology, as well as the use of antibiotics, even though one cannot generalize. But if we look at the use of antibiotics, for example, in the farming of salmon in Norway, these have dropped dramatically with the introduction of vaccines and better farming practices, which also relate to fish welfare. So all in all, I would say that it's one of the best methods in terms of environmental impact for producing animal proteins compared to others. It still has some impacts, definitely, in some areas where there's extensive production of extensive number of aquaculture sites in some areas in Southeast Asia, but also in other areas. And so it has to be controlled, improved over time, and but it's going in that direction. And compared to fishing, where when you buy a fishing vessel, that's an investment for, at least for the next 20 years, and it's very difficult to change it in its in the way that it impacts the sea. Farming can and has proved to be adapting much better to new technologies much faster, and thus decreasing its impact in a faster way. So all in all, it's from my point of view, and then everybody's free to make up his own mind or her own mind. I think it's quite a positive way of producing animal protein.
Even one more interesting thing which has came or which have been presented particularly in this presentation, which I liked a lot, is to bring more and more transparencies to have the cameras on board is not usually the thing which has happened in the past. Now the EU has taken those initiatives and may be applying those as a regulations in coming time. Many of the discussions are going on, and as usual, Dolphin Safe project and Friend of the Sea again trying to become the first one to enter or to adopt those kind of things. What Dr. Paolo has explained before. In the similar way, also we have collaborated with GFW to worked out for a few of the standard measures that how actually it will help to restrict the IUU fishing, which also has not been done in the past by anyone. So these are the additional factors which we are giving, and it will benefit the companies as well as consumer, and of course at not any additional cost, with the same cost what they are giving, which is the most important criteria.
Okay, seems like we did answer all of the questions. Thank you so much. It was a really great and a very, very informative webinar. And I'm sure Indians may need it because we still do not have such certifications here. So the information was quite nice. So I'd like to thank you both for agreeing to come to this webinar, and also to all the participants for joining our session. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.